Coogs house. Yes, Houston won a football game over the weekend, and so, of course, we're not done celebrating it.
You are Locked On Coogs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Coogs Daily Podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Angels. Whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater that can't step by, thank you for making Locked On Coogs your first listen of the day. I appreciate making us your first listen each and every day here at Locked On Coogs. We're just going to conversation, but don't say, tell us in the comments down below what your favorite cereal growing up was. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. More on that fun later, but man, oh man, Houston won a football game over the weekend, and I weirdly still have things that I feel critical about, and so I kind of want to elaborate on what happened after watching it a second time on Sunday and kind of where my head was at in that process. And so I want to talk some about like just where the status of the program is and kind of what like some perspective taking. I think that helped me out a lot on Sunday. I want to talk some about our new first goats kind of conversation every week. I kind of want to keep that thing going. But first and foremost, let's look at this offense. Houston ran the ball 50 times, I guess officially 49 times on ESPN. And I think the offense drew a lot of criticism. And in part, that's probably because it only put up 17 points. I would stress that Utah has had past tense a strong defense in the past and returned a lot of the same players and the same coaching staff and won the Pac-12. I would think that, that would make for a good defense. And generally speaking, running the ball is a sign of you're doing well because you're running the ball. If you're down early, you're having to throw the ball or whatever, right? I love running the football. I don't have an RTDB hat or whatever, although I would love a U of H themed one. I do think, though, that running the ball 50 times is almost excessive in modern football. And I really like running the ball because it's kind of a way to inflict your will, your, sense of tempo, speed, whatever. You put your imprint on the basketball game. And yes, in a very literal sense, Houston had 4.7 yards per carry. And frankly, in watching the game a second time on Sunday, there were more strong runs, I want to say, of like 4, 5, 6 yards than I initially recalled. And so I guess that's, part of my, hysterics on Saturday night about the run game, where maybe forgetting some of those 4, 5, 6 yard runs. Because again, if you're adding those up, you're getting a first down literally every 3 plays, right? And so no coach, frankly, you'll never go broke making a profit every play, right? That's a very old coach's saying. But also, I think no coach would turn down a guaranteed 4 yards of play. And it felt like at times that actually kind of was what was happening. Even though it wasn't like the traditional blowing them off the ball up front or, making nice little holes and creases. There was a lot of extra effort out of the guys carrying the football. I do think that as much flack as the offensive line gets, you also got to give them their credit when it's due. And the middle 3 guys, Tank Jenkins has a really bad penalty in the late second quarter. But outside of that, the 3 guys in the middle of the offensive line played really well, I thought, on Saturday. And so got to give credit where those guys are, if we're going to give them crap when they're not any good, you got to give them credit when they were, and they were really good on Saturday. They just were. So when you look at like the breakdown of like how yards happened, like Jermaine Burnett had 81 yards on 8 carries. So just over 10 yards per carry. You think, dang, that guy's really good. 54 of those 81 come on 1 play. And, that's not to say that the other 27 yards on 7 carries doesn't add up to be good statistically either. That's still at 3.8 yards per carry. But then you factor in like, okay, he had like a 10-yard carry first play of the game, right? He had another 10-yard carry later in the game as well. So suddenly it's like, okay, but of those 27, like just over 20 of those are on 2 carries. And so you're like, okay, then the other carries of the game that he had, the other 5 or 6 were like nothing burgers, right? And that's, I think, where the criticism comes in, right? It's like, okay, of the 8 times you called it, yes, you busted the 1. Yes, the 2 went for 10-ish yards. but more of those 8 times were close to nothing burgers, right? And that's what people I think are critical of, the run, pass, punt series that happened several times in this game, is because you'd have a couple of those nothing burgers in a row. I thought Rashawn Sanford in the second watch I thought was high on him on Saturday night, and I thought he ran even better on Sunday when I watched the second time. He had high effort runs, and by that I mean that like he'd get a few yards, and maybe it's just 3. But truthfully, it's an incredible amount of work based on how many guys in the backfield, the blitzing, the box count, the whatever, just to get those 3 yards. He had one nice 19-yard run too. It's 19 officially in the stat book. It looked like 20 to me in person on TV, but whatever, right? All that is to say that the running the ball was more effective, and this is old school football, right? This is like old traditional grind it out. I said on Saturday, the old football saying is when you throw it, 3 things can happen and 2 of them are bad, so we're not going to throw it very often, right? That is an older way of thinking, and when you're never out of the game, meaning you're never like down more than a score in this football game, you can theoretically always, from a timing perspective, run the ball and take some time off the clock and do it. I didn't think Houston did a good job at lateral type runs, outside zones where you're trying to bounce it, the sweeps, running back and jet sweep. None of that stuff seemed very effective to me in this game. Perimeter blocking, outside the tackle box blocking continues to be a problem. I mean, like, unless you're running behind Joseph Manjack. But even in that instance, like, they got to get way out to the perimeter to get behind him in the first place. Just not good. Not good. Now, I did think, and I went back and checked the stats, I think Zeon Chriss had a really good day running the football as a quarterback, and I don't think he got credit for it because the stats didn't come out quite like you like. But he got credit with a 22-yard loss of a run on that one weird play where the ball slips out of his hands. And it's not incomplete. The ball goes backwards. He's not in throwing motion, but he goes back and he's the one that falls on it. That turns into a 22-yard loss. And so it's like a rut. It's as if he ran 22 yards backwards and fell down, right? And so his other 16 carries add up to 67 yards. Well, that's 4 yards per carry, over 4 yards per carry. And when you think about like having to take a sack here or scramble for an extra yard or 2 there because there's nothing open downfield or whatever. And those did happen, I think, more than I realized when I watched it the second time on Sunday. That kind of a thing, right, adds up to actually being an impressive number. And I think when I think about his speed, I still want to get him more north and south as well. Inside fold plays, power plays, gap scheme kind of stuff. I think he's got speed to get vertical. Again, behind the center and guards, do those kinds of things. And I think that's really the strength of this offense, running behind that portion of the line and then taking your shots. I still think they should have thrown more than 13 passes officially on the book. When you take the Malik Carr pass off the book because of the penalty, or Zeon Chriss draws back and the first 2 reads aren't open, so he scampers for a couple before going down, right? Those kind of things, I guess, were called passes that don't get executed as such. But I still think there's room for more vertical passing game once you pull all those guys to the box. I think in large part it's because the receiver room is still as talented as any group on the team, and it's just an underutilized group right now. And it's kind of a way to kind of use that weapon to your advantage. Now, I say that there were 7 incomplete passes on the books officially this game. I think 3 of them I would probably actually put on the wideouts in this instance, and it's not always even the wideout that necessarily caught the football or should have caught the football. And I want to talk about that specifically in a second. We're going to do our GOATs versus GOATs segment, which we want to try and get done every week. But first, it is time to tell you about our buddies over at FanDuel so you can get ready for the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you want to check the latest stats, see play-by-play, you can do it all on the same page when you place your bets. Just at FanDuel.com. Join today. You get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Parker Answer here, Locked on Coogs, breaking down the win against Utah over the weekend for homecoming. And I want to revisit a segment that I think we're going to probably end up doing every game across the board here. That is GOATs versus GOATs. Now, GOATs with all caps, the acronym is kind of the more hip, trendy, youthful way to look at it, where it's like greatest of all time, played really well, right? The other one would be the one I think I would have called up like the GOAT of the game, whatever would be the scapegoat or the problems. And the first GOAT with capital G of this game is AJ Haulcy. Haulcy played phenomenally, laid some big hits, got credit with 4 tackles officially, had two pass breakups, and what I'm looking at here, and obviously the game-changing play with a diving pick there about midfield at the end of the football game. Gave Houston the ball. Houston then would take that from there and set up a game-winning field goal to take this one on home or to keep it at home or whatever the phrase should be there. AJ Haulcy, GOAT, big play there. Obviously, the lowercase GOAT, scapegoat type. I am going to go back to Tank Jenkins, and I know I just credited the middle part of the offensive line, and for what it's worth, in terms of run blocking, I thought Tank was actually really good. But Houston's got the ball. Houston's driving. Houston hits Malik Carr over the middle for a beautiful crossing route, and Utah can't tackle him. And I don't mean to spoil how this game ends, but Malik Carr doesn't get a whole lot of those chances in the course of this game, right? As a 7th-year college football player, that hold was not horrible. It wasn't horrible. It also can't happen. Hands got outside the shoulder pads. It wasn't necessarily a big back-breaking holding penalty, but Tank Jenkins is better than that, and he's smarter than that, and I think that's my frustration there. At that point, it's 7-7. You got to give him the ball at the end of the at the start of the third quarter. So you're trying to go down and punch one in before halftime, so you don't have to make that possession an extra possession, just kind of the coinciding possession. Just not okay. Coogs can't beat the Coogs, right? The saying that we hear so much from Willie Fritz and from this program and what all they're looking at. And meanwhile, while Houston was relatively clean in terms of penalties, they had just 3 for 30 yards. This was 10 of those yards, right? And that's a problem. Capital G GOAT, though, GOAT, goes to Keith Cooper. Now, I thought Keith was like a pro out there on Saturday. I said as much in the post game on Saturday night live reaction show. I was really impressed with a number of different things he did against the double teams and splitting of this and that. I guess officially in the books, he maybe didn't have like a ton of this, that, any other thing. They had him just as 3 tackles, 1 for loss. He had the big fumble recovery as well, kind of weird play that ended up in his lap. The real reason he gets GOAT here, though, is not just the play. Wearing your own Gravedigger shirt from the Lincoln Coogs store, which is still available. If you want to go get yourself one, money from that goes directly to Keith Cooper's NIL. That implies a level of confidence that I aspire to. Keith Cooper shows up with that shirt on the way to the game with a picture of himself digging a grave on the front of it for his opponent. You're going to talk to people before and after the game. Bringing that with you implies that you know what the conversation is going to be about. It's going to be about a dominant performance. I love, love, love that kind of stuff. Lowercase G GOAT of the game, scapegoat type thing. Devin Williams. Now, Devin Williams had just a single target and was a completion. He turned a pass caught behind line scrimmage to a 3-yard gain. Great. Fine. I wish he could have had more targets. Whatever. I thought he and Zeon Chriss actually had a pretty strong connection in the TCU game. Also created a touchdown there, and that didn't happen in this game, but whatever, right? I want to focus on a play that almost lost the game for Houston, made by Devin Williams. And that was actually a screen pass to Joseph Manjack. I said earlier, right, that it's not necessarily the incompletion being on the receiver that was supposed to catch the ball. In this case, that was Manjack, but on Williams. Now it's a bubble screen out there. Devin Williams supposed to be blocking. Manjack catch is supposed to be running behind him. And frankly, it's a 2-on-1 situation. It actually looks like it should work out pretty well for Manjack. Ball was thrown well, but the corner cuts across Devin Williams' face and disrupts everything. He nearly picks it. It looks like it skips across his shoulders and Devin's shoulders as they go from parallel to the line of scrimmage to perpendicular because he gets beat so bad on the block. And the ball changes directions a couple times. Ultimately ends up an incompletion. Had that ball been intercepted, at that point it was 14-7. Houston had the ball. 2 plays later, Houston scores to make it 14-14. I don't mean to say that Houston scoring shouldn't make up for that. Sure. Goes to Manjack on a great quick slant that they ran with 2 fades running the safeties off. It was great. It was great. If that ball gets picked, Houston's touchdown does not happen. I am not confident in the movement of the ball in this game that Houston would have gotten another touchdown chance. I just don't know that I would have said that they do. So lowercase G GOAT, Devin Williams on missing that block. That was almost really bad. Capital G GOAT goes Rashawn Sanford. I mentioned earlier he had some high effort runs here, but with inconsistencies kind of at the different edges of the box and stuff like that. And he made some dudes just flat miss on off tackle kind of stuff. PFF officially had him with 7 missed tackles. Pro Football Focus, that is 7 forced missed tackles. I think I had him with closer to 10 in my quick notes, and that was really just because I was whoa every single time. And so I feel like that's impressive enough to earn this. I know he didn't get in the end zone. I know we didn't get the yardage we wanted out of him. That is impressive, and frankly, I think speaks to the kinds of yards he was getting. So Rashawn Sanford gets capital G GOAT in this one. Lowercase G GOAT, Mekhi Muse. Mekhi was player of the game last week. And frankly, I think, again, we're looking here at another moment where you could have helped Houston win the game a little easier. And so it's the second 4th and goal because they missed 4th and goal on the one end. Zeon Chriss fumbles a snap, right, and falls on it short of the goal line, right? 4th and goal from definitely inside the 2. It might have been inside the 1.5, might have been inside the 1. And instead of that, they're going to run a traditional handoff type of play. And Mekhi Muse is lined up like attached to line of scrimmage for whatever reason. And he gets knifed. And by that, I mean that he lets a defensive lineman cross from the outside of the box across his face into the backfield. And that dude lights the play about the time Rashawn Sanford takes the handoff. And people really quickly were starting to be critical about, like, well, that should have been Jamarian Burnett, and he's the bigger back, and and that all could very well be true. I am telling you right now, I am very confident in watching that play again on Sunday. If Mekhi Muse even just cut blocks, a legal cut block there, Sanford scores. And furthermore, if Mekhi Muse lays a good block there, Sanford definitely scores. And some, I think, would accurately point to, well, Mekhi Muse is a great athlete in a lot of ways. He's not a very big guy. Shouldn't they have put a big blocking body there? Wouldn't that? And maybe that's the case. Maybe that's the little G GOAT then should go to whoever put him there. Because he's good at a lot of things, folks, but that play was not one of them. But that was bad. And had Houston not scored later in the contest, that would have been a chance to score in a game where, if they don't score later, they probably lose, right? So little G GOAT there. Capital G GOAT. Capital G GOAT goes to one Jack Martin. Jack Martin gets a capital G GOAT here for winning the football game. Obviously, the game-winning kick is going to be a big deal here. I don't think I need to tell you anything about that. First game-winning kick at University of Houston in 15 years. Big deal. there. I want to get to a last and final segment here talking about Willie Fritz in year one and some perspective taking. But before we get there, I want to talk to you about our buddies at Game Time. Game Time is the best place to get tickets for whatever you're going to go see. Game Time is the app to go check things out. Concerts, theater, sports games, whatever you're trying to go do. Got to go check it out at Game Time. Game Time. Use promo code Locked On for $20 off. Game Time Picks helps curate the best picks, all in pricing. Helps make sure that you're toggling to see no surprise fees. Lowest price guarantee means you get credited 110% back of the difference if you can find tickets the same section in a row cheaper somewhere else. So go get into the action. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Terms apply. Create an account. Redeem code Locked On College. LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, so quick perspective taking here as Houston comes off of a win. Last second field goal to win 17-14 over Utah at homecoming. Big win for the Coogs. I gotta look at this though in a little bit bigger perspective, and I think that's easy to get down in a program when they're sitting here at not a whole lot of wins and a whole lot of losses, and some of the turmoil, some things gone up and down and backwards and things like that, right? But, and work with me here on this one, I think that the perspective is a little shaken. I think it's easy to get explosive and inflammatory and ride the highs and lows of every week. And they didn't beat Kansas last week, and they didn't do this, and they got a tough one coming up here, and da-da-da-da-da. But Houston, coming to the season, was rebuilding. We knew that. We heard that a lot. And we know that it's going to take a while. But we're officially 2/3 of the way through Willie Fritz's first year in Houston. And Houston sits at 11th place in the conference. That's 11th place in the Big 12. That's 11th place in the Big 12 with two teams that are in the college football playoff potential. Another couple teams in the top 25. That's 11th place in the Big 12 in a Power 4 conference in just your second year in said conference. 11th place in the Big 12. It also, for what it's worth, is 11th place in the Big 12 in Willie Fritz's first season after you saw a large exodus of talent in the transfer portal last year and kind of piecemealing classes put together. You get to pull in a full class of 2024, right? For what it's worth, that is another big deal to me for Willie Fritz. And I think what's interesting is, as down as people want to get on the team and the program, if I had told you in July that in late October, 2/3 of the way through the season, you'd be sitting here with two conference wins, and you would be at 11th place in the conference, right? Middle third, ran roughly, right? I think most people would have taken that. And I think it's interesting that if I told you that was going to be the case in July, you'd have taken it. And there are so many people upset about where they are now that we're here at that spot in August. And I don't know what that says. I don't know what that's supposed to say. But what I think it says is that it's people having trouble stomaching what the reality of this rebuild is going to be. It was going to be stripping it down. It was going to be rebuilding back up after that. This is what that looks like, right? When we say Houston's going to take steps back before they go forwards, this is what that looks like. And so that's just where I'm at on this thing. That's where I look at it. And I think that perspective on the status of the program, I would hope adds some insight, some cleverness, and some maybe reality checking along the way here. Honestly, if you told me 2/3 of the way through the year that Houston would have been 11th in the conference in Willie Fritz's first year, I probably would have taken it last December, January. I think there's a bigger picture of what's happening, and there's good things being done in the culture aspect and this and that and all those things too. But I don't think that's as quite the abysmal thing as some of the more inflammatory folks might lead you to believe. And so Kansas State this weekend's going to be tough. they're really good, right? You finish, you got Baylor and BYU, and some of them left, and BYU looks really good. Baylor scored a lot of points that 1 week. I don't know. I just think that keeping things in perspective is going to be really, really important. Anyway, we'll be here each and every day talking about perspective. Basketball season coming up, football, all of it. Locked on Coogs. Proud member of Locked on Podcast is your team every day. Go Coogs.